Good morning. I'm Melinda Baird. I am Director of Education and Community Outreach here at Steinway & Sons in Washington, D.C. But today I am sequestered with my own Steinway here in my home in Bethesda. I'm happy to welcome all of you, our viewers and our distinguished panelists, to this webinar we are calling Pandemic Pedagogy, exploring ideas for learning and adapting and connecting through music, which is so important during these distant times. Joining us, we have four panelists from the Peabody Institute, Dr. Abra Bush, who is the Senior Associate Dean of Institute Studies at Peabody. She oversees all elements of curriculum and personnel for academic and applied study. Welcome, Abra. So happy to have you.
Thanks, Melinda. It's good to be here.
From across the river, at George Mason University, we are happy to welcome Dr. Linda Monson, who is an international Steinway artist and is currently serving as the director of the School of Music in the College of Visual and Performing Arts. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
We're glad to have you. And together, back here in Maryland, we're happy to have the Director of Piano and Division Coordinator of the Piano Department at the University of Maryland, College Park, Dr. Larissa Dedova. Welcome, Larissa. And beside her, happy to have you. And beside her, sheltering in place together with Larissa is Dr. Mikhail Volchok, who Thank you. So happy to have you, Misha. Since 1997, Dr. Volchok has also been a faculty member at the University of Maryland on the piano faculty there, and also a master teacher at the Levine School of Music in Washington. Misha and I had a chance to work closely together when I was piano chair at Levine, and so I've been able to see firsthand the fruits of his good teaching and mentoring.
Thank you again.
And welcome to you, our viewers and listeners. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to submit questions for our panelists, then please do so through the Q&A feature of Zoom. We may not get to all of your questions, but we will do our best. I'm so excited to be able to explore some of these topics with our panelists. As I've spoken to them individually, I've been so inspired by the ideas they have, by the things they are doing to keep their students engaged and the ways in which they have adapted in this new world. So Abra, I'd like to start with you. Were you prepared for this to happen?
I don't think anyone could fully have been prepared for this to happen. But it was interesting now in retrospect, a couple of months, that there were some key support systems that we had put into place over the last several years that have very much assisted us with moving forward in this new remote environment. Beginning about 4 years ago, we actually hired our first academic technologist, our first instructional designer at Peabody, and that is actually embedded in the music unit. And since that time, we've hired 2 more. So we actually had 3 professional instructional designers ready to go, and who have built about 12 online courses for Peabody over the last 3 to 4 years. So we had already wrestled with some of the challenges of sound compression and challenges of microphones and how to show notation via software. So we I think had a little bit of a head start in that way. In addition, we all started hearing about this virus in China in January and early February, and for many of us, the conversations about how auditions were going to go were starting to be at the forefront of our thinking. Johns Hopkins as a university really started to engage us all in conversations around financial planning and academic planning in early February to start combating this. And then for a variety of circumstances, I actually was in conversations quite often with a number of folks who are physicians, and especially 2 infectious disease specialists during the month of February. And I started to kind of really realize that we could very well be in for a problem. And so I, in the third week of February, pulled together instructional design, the library, academic affairs, and asked them for a full framework of how we could move into a remote environment by what would have been our spring break, the Friday before spring break, March 13th. To their credit, they leaped to this and were able to put up a variety of resources under a page called Keep Teaching at Peabody. And I'm happy to share the link in the chat for any of you that are interested. It's a number of outward-facing resources and support systems to help our faculty. We've also now got a Keep Learning site and a Keep Working site for our staff as well. But that team really saved the day for us. They literally sat with individual faculty, making sure they had appropriate equipment, microphones, that they knew really how to maximize their use of Blackboard. They ran multiple sessions every week in order to teach people how to use Zoom and Blackboard and other resources. So I think for me, the greatest takeaway here is that the investment in IT and in infrastructure and in academic technologists and instructional designers could not be understated. And the need for those folks, I think, as we continue in likely what will be at least a hybrid remote environment for the near term, is essential to our success.
Yeah. Wow. How serendipitous that you had these things in place. We don't necessarily think of those in the classical music world as being that important, but ended up really, really helping that transition. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. It's really important, important message for all of us as musicians. Linda, you've had a history of wonderful big events at George Mason, and some of those I'm sure were already in the planning stages. And how did you handle those? How did your big event go last weekend? How are you planning to handle graduation? I mean, that's 38,000 students. Oh, I believe you're still muted. Yeah, let's see, I can.
There we go. Okay.
There we go.
Am I on? Okay. As Abra just said, we also were in a state of making the spring break be a very functional time to have maximum training happen for our faculty. We have a Stearns Teaching Excellence Center, and so we had specialists, with the course design, again, just trying to make sure we were able to deliver in terms of classes. Ensembles are their own consideration, of course, but our events, it's for all of our arts organizations, it's very difficult when your concert season cannot continue as you had planned and your halls are shut down, and so but the music needs to continue. It must continue, and so we have tried to do a lot virtually. We call it a Mason Arts at Home, and so we have a Mason Arts at Home channel, and we've put all kinds of things online in terms of our concerts, our dance, theater, etc. Some things are worked so beautifully, and we're all set online, whether it's film or game design, other programs within our College of Visual and Performing Arts. But for music, dance, and theater, the virtual world has been a newer force for us. I will say that specifically relating to your question, last weekend we did a concert. I called it Music in the Time of Quarantine. And so we had some things that I couldn't make happen. Percussion ensemble could not do their thing. I couldn't have symphony orchestra. But what we had, beautiful virtual choir performances, had 4 world premieres, commissioned works. We made things happen. We could really make it happen in the choral realm. And so I was really, really happy with that aspect. It was touching. It was beautiful. Our students were so excited. We do have a really thriving music technology area at Mason. And thank God, these students then, it's like, okay, look, I've got projects for you all. So I brought our music tech area directly into what we needed in terms of our performance productions, et cetera, with now everything being virtual. Have a great new associate professor at music tech that he embraced what we needed. And so, I mean, we were blessed in that way. I honestly, we couldn't have done this if I didn't have the music tech area and them helping us. But we put on virtual concerts. Last Saturday was a big one for us. And so, you know, you can look at life two ways. We can say all the disappointing things and, you know, God only knows, you know, where this has been hard, you know, just getting instruments in people's hands, making life happen, working with challenges. You know, you have students that are ill, you have all the things that have gone with this. But we have to make good happen out of, and there has to constantly be a sense of inspiring and creating hope. And music has that ability. Music is powerful. And so I think all of us as artists are somewhat in a unique position to be able to give that hope, because music speaks in a way that it touches one deeply. And so I will say, as a, you know, as director of the School of Music, last Saturday's concert, Music in the Time of Quarantine, was actually one of the most soul-filled concerts that I you know, in all my years there. Was it our most polished in the beautiful halls and with the huge ensembles and the large, you know, works? No, but these were students in their individual homes performing, you know, and these were our, whether it's choirs or the jazz ensemble or, you know, woodwind, strings, brass, our faculty brass ensemble commissioned work. I mean, it was just amazing. And the composers, we had, you know, a lot of Mason composers involved. Really, really awesome. We had an 8-hand piano work, which was really fun, you know. And so we had lots of chamber music happening. But I mean, do we miss our traditional large ensembles and being able to do things the way we really love? Of course we miss that. Do we miss breathing together? Of course. This is what we do to make chamber music happen. However, have we all learned in new ways? Have we learned how to become really expert with the click track? Have we learned how to choose repertoire that's going to work in this environment? Have we learned how to have our technology experts help us to be able to produce music that is meaningful? Have we at least tried very hard to deliver in a way that can indeed touch lives? We are artists. It's our calling to be creative and to make the music continue. My mantra is simply, let the music continue. How we do it is up to us. We've got to figure it out. But thank God, you know, we have our minds, we have our people. We are blessed with the most awesome creative people, you know, by virtue of being a music school. And so, you know, we can do it. Yeah. But we have to be willing to try new things, and we can't just sit in our studio and say, by gosh, this makes me mad because it's not the way I want it to be. You know, life isn't the way we want it to be right now. But we come through this, and we come through it stronger. What I have said to our students, you know, our hall holds 1,100. Had we had our performance Saturday night in a typical way, we might have had 1,000 people there. Great. We actually had 2,200 people viewing our concert with the online. Now, again, is this ideal? Of course, it's not ideal, but it is an opportunity to still make music. And so artists are compelled to make music, but we have to be willing to learn new ways, and we have to actually embrace it and say, okay, what can I do now that I couldn't do before? Yeah. How can I teach in different ways that it's actually going to work? I find there's an accountability that's unreal. I mean, when you are dealing, you know, especially in classrooms, when you're, you know, if you have a theory class and you've got whatever, 20 in the class, I mean, there is no hiding. In this virtual setting, my gosh, you know exactly what every single student is doing at all times. There's no hiding. And in lessons, you know, you can say, well, I missed the subtlety. I can't hear all the pedaling. I can't hear this, you know, there's certain things I can't hear the color the same way. Yeah, right. And that's frustrating. However, what can you hear? All kinds of other things. So it's a matter of, I think, attitude. My phrase is latitude with gratitude.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Linda. So many things that we have had to embrace to use in this pivot and take us from our traditional ways of learning into these non-traditional ways of learning. Larissa, as you and I spoke, you mentioned some things that you were doing in your studio with recordings to help your students learn, and that you felt like maybe in some ways this was better. Can you share a little bit of that with us?
Oh, yes, with pleasure. You know, when it hit us, everybody was shocked, of course. But I told my students, you know what, you're going to learn something new, and it will be very interesting, very helpful, and not so easy for you, because I'm going to assign you to record your pieces and send them to me. And before you send them to me, you should listen to them. And if it's not good, please don't do it. Don't send it. So, and they, first they said, oh, and they would send whatever they play, you know, without actually checking how it is. But then they learned, you know, kind of how to self-teach themselves, you know, because it is so great, even when in normal time, you know, for practicing and checking, listening to yourself and being your own evaluator, you know. So now I think they actually they play better, I would say. The pieces they do, they are much more mature. And also I gave them another assignment, which is to listen to 2-3 recordings of big masters, you know, of the piece they do, and write a paper for me, and just explain me, to make a comparison and explain to me why this or that pianist is closer, what they like, what they don't like. And, you know, it is so fantastic. It affects their own playing a lot. So I think this is a new thing I actually thought about, that I'm going to continue. Even if we are back on campus, I'm going to continue this recording and comparison of big recordings.
Yeah.
So I would say, I wanted to say one thing also, that we were very grateful to Steinway, who actually delivered the pianos to our students who got stuck here and they couldn't get home. And we have 7 pianists with this situation. And now they can normally practice and they can prepare for the fall. And actually, we are always in contact with them. And during the summer, I'm going to be available for them and offer them consultations, lessons, whatever they want, because I think it's extremely important, because they feel lonely and they feel, you know, they need motivation and they need support of their teachers.
Yeah, so that's wonderful. So they have pianos to practice on now, because of course they couldn't go to the school to practice. So that's
absolutely.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So
we're very happy about it and grateful to this generosity, you know, because they did it for us.
That's wonderful that Steinway was able to help in that way, so that the music could keep going. We have to all be creative.
Yes. Oh yes, the music never betrays you, you know. The music is your friend, and you know, and people become actually closer, I think, now in a way, you know. It's like Linda mentioned, you know, it's you just talk eyes to eyes and soul to soul. It's interesting time, not exactly easy, but I think a lot of things make sense now, you know.
Yeah, connecting in new ways.
Exactly.
Yeah. Misha, how do you think your students are doing? Doing better?
Doing better, yes. It's amazing, but it's true. It's true. They are very motivated, and it's this thing with recording, it works actually. Now, if you, first of all, I would like to express our gratitude to Steinway, to our wonderful Melinda and our friend Matt for organizing and moderating this webinar, because I think that the musical community should stay and feel united during these days and months. So thank you very much. I would like to elaborate this recording matter, because we came to this recording style because Zoom, it's not a secret. Zoom doesn't work always so beautifully for live stream. And if to elaborate on a technical part of this, I have 2 points. First point, Dr. Bush mentioned microphones. This is essential. This is essential, and I was hesitant to ask my students to buy somehow external microphones because it's not expensive, but they have to spend some money. From the other side, it's a good investment. And my friend told me, don't be hesitant. Actually, for all classes, they have to buy textbooks. And textbooks are much more expensive than a cheap microphone on Amazon. And it gives full frequency. It's essential for music. It gives full frequency because all these microphones built in, they cut frequencies, they cut loud sounds, and they make soft sounds louder. This is my first point. Second point, of course, we switch platforms. We go from time to time from Zoom to FaceTime and then to Skype, whatever works better. But specifically about Zoom, I have a very good friend, retired, former high-ranking software engineer, and I asked him to explore. And he told me there is a hidden setting inside Zoom. He explained to me that Zoom was invented for speech conference, not for music, Mm-hmm. So very often, especially with piano music, because it works different with strings and so on, because it lasts. In piano music, it has an initial stage, mm-hmm. and then it deteriorates. So Zoom thinks that what is deteriorating is noise. And it's very simple. I can show you right now. If you look at the bottom panel where the microphone mute is, on the left side, on the right side is an arrow. Please click it. You will come to a menu and click Auto Settings. When you click Auto Settings, click on Advanced. And the first option is called Show in Meeting option to enable original sound from microphone, original sound. Because they installed a special codec which treats sound in an artificial way. Just click it, and then you will get a small menu on the left part on the top. Turn on original sound. So every time, every session, you will have to click it, and you will have an original sound from the external microphone. Yeah. So
that's wonderful. So we sometimes learn from our students, sometimes we learn from other faculty members, and they help us to adapt. We are finding many new ways to adapt. Abra, how has your faculty adapted? And have there been any surprises in the way they have adapted to this new situation?
I have to say that there have been. I mean, I've been very heartened by the response of the faculty throughout all of this. They've been wonderful team players. They, when they found out that we were shutting down essentially that second week of March, they all came in, they sat through trainings, they learned things like how to fix these sound issues in Zoom. They worked with microphones, they tried to develop skills that many of them never had. I'll be honest in saying, many of us across higher education are seeing sort of major generational shifts going on right now with the professoriate. And so we have a mix of more senior faculty members, especially in the applied areas, and more junior faculty members. I had sort of anticipated that the junior faculty members might embrace this more than the senior faculty members. And so we did just a little bit more outreach to some of the more senior folks among us. I have to say, though, to a person, they continue to find opportunities in this teaching, much like my colleagues have been describing. Opportunities not only for the dissemination of music, the dissemination of art, but also opportunities for thinking about teaching in new and inventive ways. That's sort of what's been described as asynchronous models of teaching, where we are using more recordings, we're speaking in a lesson and kind of grappling with the issues as opposed to the synchronicity that we're accustomed to in regular lessons. We also have found incredible opportunities, things that we hadn't thought of before. But, when we have a regular faculty meeting at Peabody, there might be 25 faculty members that show up. Now there are over 100 every single time. We had a DMA lecture recital a couple of weeks ago, which, those are typically very poorly attended everywhere I've ever been, including my own. And we had over 150 people in attendance for this DMA lecture recital. The addition of the use of video for our dancers and, to Linda's point about actualizing the recording arts and the technology area to really assist. What I'm seeing is a flourishing of conversations around cross-disciplinary and interdisciplinary collaborations in ways that we are typically not accustomed to. Sort of a rethinking of pedagogy in a way that I think a lot of our faculty haven't done in years or maybe decades. And sort of an idea that, if in fact we really are all committed to teaching 21st century artists, what are the skills that those 21st century artists need to have when they leave the academy? My expectation today is that when a student leaves Peabody, she needs to be able to record herself. She needs entrepreneurial skills. She needs to be able to utilize video, utilize social media, figure out how to monetize her work. We cannot expect any student to rely on having a job in a symphony orchestra or even in higher education any longer. And in fact, we really truly need to make sure that our students are trained as flexibly and as and with an eye to technology as possible. I think that's a place where those of us in university settings have a distinct advantages over the sort of traditional conservatory approach, which does not usually utilize quite as much technology. My guess is that we're going to be at this for a bit, right? I don't see that we're going to be able to immediately return to business as normal in 2 or 3 months. In fact, I think that would be ludicrous to assume. And so I suspect that, and I understand there are people working on issues around low latency internet and sound compression at NYU and at other places. We certainly are working on how to use virtual reality to assist the training of some of our students, especially in conducting and in other ways. I think that when we come out of this COVID-19 period, what we're going to see is that some of these tools are going to stick with us. And so I think it's incumbent upon all of us in higher education and even down into preparatory education to think about what our students really truly need from us and that we are adapting in the academy in order to deliver that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So again, the technology helps us learn how to pivot in a place that we may have been stuck as classical musicians. And as we learn how to blend this into our teaching, then it may open up new career options as well. Because as you mentioned, careers that may have been available to a college music graduate 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago may not be available now.
I think what's so exciting is that we are seeing those medium to large size arts organizations really struggle. The folks that are not struggling are the small, nimble chamber ensembles. The folks that, don't have a lot of overhead, they're not paying a lot of high salaries. They are actually making a lot of music and doing it in very creative ways and monetizing their work. And they have been for quite some time. We've all pointed to the examples of the International Contemporary Ensemble, ICE, or Eighth Blackbird, or Lorelei Ensemble in Boston. And we continue to talk about why those are so important. But I think for right now, that small chamber model is going to be essential to how we're educating students. We simply can't run choir. We can't run large ensemble. We can't put that many people in a room. So how are we going to pivot to make sure that we're not only teaching the traditional skills of excellence and technique, and ensuring that our students know as much as possible about the various eras of music and theory and all the things we've traditionally done. But I think that the veneer has to also be there around technology and around entrepreneurship and the sort of habits of mind of what is relevant, right? How can we make music relevant to community? How can we make music relevant to our audiences? And I think that our colleagues across the country are doing incredible work in this area right now. They're not able to monetize it quite yet, or many of them aren't, although some are. And I think that as we start to really dive into this over the next few months, I would say by the holidays, we're going to see sort of a vastly different platform emerge around how people are making music and sharing it.
Yeah. So this becomes an opportunity, I guess, this crisis, and out of the ashes, we're learning how to build something. Let me put that question to our other panelists about what you feel is being done at your university or in your studio to help our students pivot, to help them learn from this experience how to build new careers, how to look for new opportunities, how to collaborate in new ways. Collaborations are one of the most frustrating parts of this because we don't have those group meetings. We don't get to make music physically together. Linda, how's your university adapting to this and helping develop new possibilities for careers?
Yes, well, I think training is essential, the training and the planning. And so this summer, we have a whole series of things that we are planning to do with students and faculty in terms of training. But what we have tried to do just in these, in these weeks since the campus shut down, is trying to make sure that everyone, each student, each faculty member is involved in some type of collaborative experience. And so the fact that everybody needs to deal with the click track in some way or other, that they need to learn how that works, even though they might say, this doesn't feel musical, this does, whatever. Okay, you know what? We do it. So we pick appropriate repertoire to make this work. And it has been, I think, really interesting and really rewarding to then see a product happen where, yes, the collaborative music making has continued, but it is hard. I had just yesterday, so we, of course, all the juries and final recitals and graduation, everything this week. So one of my students was working on a concerto, and with his teacher, the teacher is inside in her home with her Steinway playing, had the window open. The young man has his computer. He's playing with the recording. Anyhow, put together so that they can then send a recording. Now, is this ideal? Of course not. However, it's happening. And so the young man was still able to have his 3 movements of his concerto happen with the teacher on the collaborative with the orchestral piano. But I mean, actually, it's kind of profoundly sad in a way. I'm looking at this, it tears me up because I mean, but the point is this: we make it happen. In answer to your question, what are we doing? Training, training as Abra said, making sure that we do have the proper external mics, making sure that we understand how to use Blackboard Collaborate, that we are knowing what we're doing with the the notation software, et cetera, et cetera. So the training for the students and the faculty, and making sure we're as set as we can be in that way. again, collaborating a lot with our peers in music technology and with our other areas in the College of Visual and Performing Arts with, with dance and theater. And
Linda,
again, and then using our colleagues like in game design who are experts in so many ways with the technology, and our film and video studies area. So having that sense of real teamwork and using expertise, with some of them to be able to help us. And then likewise, I think we're able to contribute, to their areas as well. So I will say in terms of as a college, for visual and performing arts, this is a key time to be able to work together in new collaborative ways so that we can indeed continue with collaborative music as well. Training, and the other thing is having plans. I mean, I'm a big planner. So we have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. If campus is open, we'll do this. Campus is partially open, we do this. Campus is not open, we do that. And just you have to have flexibility. And with the schedule, which classes are going to be offered when, can we do this? Can we put everyone all together? Or do we have this running 3 sessions at a time? So it's a chamber orchestra and 3 different rooms. I mean, we have all these different scenarios and options to make things work depending on what happens within the virus. In terms of the possibilities for being open or not open. But this is what I do know. We will guarantee that we have a top-notch instruction and our students will gain, and they will gain in meaningful ways. It might be different than what they were initially looking for, but it will be meaningful and it will be awesome, and they will come out strong musicians. I think as leaders of an institution, our job in many, many ways is to make sure that we keep our people, our faculty, our students alive with hope that, we can still do this. Because when we turn inward and we just say, it's so awful, it's not the way I want it to be, I can't do my senior recital and have all, it's like all these things that are so frustrating because we had all these plans. We still have the senior recital, but by God, we're delivering it differently. But look how many people can get to hear you. And we have all these ways to still continue. But it's up to us to inspire our students to make sure the art of music is still exciting for them and that we're providing them with the opportunities to deliver. I mean, I think that's our job. Because if we don't do that, we're going to go in a hole, dig our heads in the sand and say, I can't do it. But we can, but we have to be willing to try new ways, and we have to convince our folks, yes, music is still beautiful and music is still worth digging deep. And so taking the hours necessary to do what needs to be done, I'd say we're given more time. The one thing this pandemic has done, we're not commuting, we're not spending the hours doing all these things that we had to do. We have more time. Whether or not we have joy and happiness in our lives, for the most part, is how we use our time. So I'm just encouraging people, use your time to learn new things and then dig deep into the music, because you have the time. Don't tell me you don't. Now, what you do with this time is in large part what gives us meaning. So it's up to us, though, to inspire, to make sure that they want that.
Well, we are very inspired by you. And certainly this helps us realize that part of the responsibility, a large portion of the responsibility does lie with us as teachers, to help students figure out how to invent themselves and how to make music in new ways, how to collaborate in new ways. One of the things that you mentioned to me, Linda, in our earlier discussion was that the commissions are continuing, that the school continues to commission new works. And those things can certainly continue to happen. And I think you presented even some commissioned works on this last...
right, we did several, yes.
Yeah, which is great. So it just shows that the university is very forward-thinking, that they continue to invest in their students in that way, that they believe in the creative power of these wonderful kids. Larissa and Misha, how are you encouraging, or how have you found your students perhaps becoming more open-minded about potential careers as they're going through this crisis?
First of all, I would like to say that we spend much more time on our students than before. And this is good because we have a lot of time available, not commuting, correct?
Yes.
I just mentioned it yesterday to Larissa that we are not commuting. So it's, you know, why not to spend this time on our students? Everything depends on teachers. I don't know how it goes with our classes at Maryland. There are many difficulties, of course, but here for applied lessons, it depends on teachers. For example, I keep my weekly schedule as usual, and I work with Levine students on Saturday according to my schedule. But I told them, and also at the university, I told them I am available 7, not 24, but normal working hours. You don't wait, just send your recordings. If anything is ready on Monday, send it on Monday. I will respond either by email or I will send you a video message, or we just schedule a Zoom meeting. So basically, it takes much more time because you need to listen to it. If it's a recording, you need to listen to it. I'm making notes. Then we discuss. And last time with one of my students, I tried a different thing. 2 computers, one for Zoom and one for his recording he sent beforehand. Huge recording, 40 minutes. It's his level 10 recital. And we listened to it together. When I felt something wrong, I immediately stopped it and asked him, what was wrong? You tell me. No, I don't understand. Okay, listen once more. And so on and so on. It took more than an hour and a half. So I think at that moment, at that time, teachers should be very generous, and students appreciate it.
Yeah, I think they certainly do. And as we work with our students, we can help them understand new possibilities, and sometimes there are new opportunities for learning that may not have existed otherwise. Larissa, as you continue to work with your students, do you find that the kids today are more open to using technology and developing some future career paths?
I think so, of course. And they are much more advanced, you know, technologically than myself. So
No.
yeah, I'm sure that yeah, they will benefit from it. And you know, the world is changing, you know. Our daughter, for example, who lives in Switzerland and who is a concert pianist, she just created a series of little concerts that are recorded in a studio, because they also they don't allow big halls and audiences. So and in the future, hopefully, they are going to continue live these little concerts. And what they do. Also, they do, for example, next time she's going to perform with her friend, a beautiful violinist who lives in Vienna. So they recorded a piece, and I just heard it. She sent it to me, and it worked great. So she's sitting in Basel, and he's playing in Vienna, and it's absolutely beautiful. And it's all can continue and be a great experience and great for the audiences. So it's just apropos, but I think that what is also very important, that yes, we have a lot of time, and I think that if we encourage our students to learn much more than they actually are supposed to learn, so new repertoire, new books, new recordings, so just to load them as much as possible and inspire them doing the same. Because we have time, you know, we have time to practice, we have time to read, we have time to listen. And if we continue doing this and share our experience with them, you know, it will inspire them. And of course, it means that we are in a constant contact with them during the summer and at all. So I'm actually trying to be as optimistic and positive as possible. And I always tell them that we are so fortunate to be musicians,
Yes.
so lucky to be musicians. I think we always can rely upon our music, you know, and we never can be really miserable and unhappy until we're with music. That's what I'm telling them all the time.
It's so inspiring, and it's such a positive way to look at this crisis as an opportunity to expand the music we are making, to take advantage of the extra time, the extra resources, using ideas from others, to build this new world together.
Absolutely.
I want to remind our listeners for our last few minutes that if you are submitting questions or anything in the chat, that it should go to all panelists and all attendees if you want others to see it. Abra was kind enough and fast enough to share with us in the chat already this Peabody document, Keep Teaching, that she spoke about a little bit earlier. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that, Abra? And then just as kind of a follow-up to this, you're also, as an institution, involved in a consortium of schools where you're sharing ideas and information with some of the other conservatories in the United States, Juilliard, Curtis, others.
Yeah.
What kinds of resources have come out of that? Just talk a little bit about that in general too.
So the Keep Teaching website, as I alluded to earlier, really was meant to be a place to start for Peabody, for faculty, when they were starting to move into a remote teaching format. And I did put the link into the chat, so you all should be able to see it. It's all outward facing. Anyone is welcome to utilize those resources, so please have a look. Over the summer, we're actually setting up what we're calling a Peabody Collective, and essentially we're utilizing our academic technology team to better train our academic faculty to work in this remote environment. You know, we are categorizing this as remote as opposed to online, because there are very vast differences, right? An online course is highly developed. There are a lot of hands-on it. It's very well thought out. Remote teaching is a different animal altogether. It's still synchronous mostly to a degree, although we're trying to move more and more of it into an asynchronous platform. So we're going to be doing that over the summer. We've got about 6 weeks that we're going to be training those faculty members. We're calling it 24 hours until fall. So faculty will be engaged in 24 hours worth of work there. And then on the applied side, we are standing up some closed Facebook groups potentially, or some kind of closed team group. I'm not quite sure which yet, to have a kind of discussion threads going around microphones and around best practices in teaching, those kinds of things. In addition, very early on in the pandemic, a number of us from the conservatory sector got together in a series of phone conversations. It really came about in part because we needed group therapy and no one could access it at the time. And in part because we wanted to hear what others were doing in the sector. So that is a group that is, it's a lot of us, frankly, who are no longer in NASM and simply don't have the colleagues that we used to have. So it was New England Conservatory, Juilliard, Manhattan, Mannes, Peabody, Oberlin, I'm going to forget some, Curtis, Colburn, San Francisco, and a few other folks kind of tossed in there as well. And we started talking about how we could support one another. We're not trying to collude in any way. This is really about how we can support each other and our students through this pandemic moment. And so we all sort of collectively decided that we could learn from each other, because there are pockets of very good pedagogy going on in some areas, in some schools, and not in others. And so with their support and with the academic leadership of all of those schools, we put together a webinar series that's going to go out this summer. It starts June 2nd. It's June 2nd through the end of July, every Tuesday at noon, and we've scheduled 2 to 3 panelists for each of those. They'll be around areas such as utilizing digital resources in a music library, what's available and how can we do that, moving a class from a remote format or from an in-person format to a remote format, what are some key tips and tools. We're also going to do an applied music roundtable. We're going to do an ensembles and chamber music roundtable. ear training, teaching keyboard using technology. There are a whole bunch of those. There's a section on that Keep Teaching site called Summer Lunch and Learn Series. So you can go there and check those out and register. They're completely free. They're open to not only the faculty and the alumni of all the conservatories, but also anyone could join us. We simply are just doing this as a service to the community to help support teaching and learning at Peabody and around the country in terms of music instruction. So I think it's a great moment in a way for us to all learn from each other and to really kind of step out ahead about what this can look like. You know, we cannot run things in the same way we've run them in the past, which sort of, you know, and I will admit, if we were in NASM, that might be more difficult today. But we are in a position where we don't have an accreditor kind of telling us what we have to do. And so that has been a benefit to us. So that being said, we're trying to think outside the box. Instead of kick the box, we're trying to think outside of it and think about how we can really no longer do some of the things we've always done. Those kind of 19th century archetypes we find are breaking down. And this is a moment to really embrace that.
Yeah. And as we're doing today, we can learn from each other and we can learn from what others are doing. Misha, you had a comment about that.
There was a chat question concerning what kind of platform to use to send recordings. The short answer is just any cloud platform. It works fine. YouTube works fine. It was how our final juries were organized through the links in YouTube. But the simplest way is just to record it with your phone and to try to send it by mail.
Yeah.
And then the mail program will say, you know, that the file is too long for a mail. Do you want to upload it to cloud mail? You say yes, and that's it. Very simple. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So Abra, you mentioned that things may be pivoting as we are learning new things, learning new technologies, learning from each other. And so I'd like to give each of you a chance to just think about how this may change learning in the future and how this experience might change the way we learn, the way our students learn. And what the big takeaway you think is going to be from our COVID-19 experience. I hope we're all keeping journals, and we will look back on this and we may see some really beautiful things that come out of it. But how is this gonna change future learning?
I can say something, if I may.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we're going to maybe combine, you know, our regular old-fashioned, so to say, beautiful teaching with what we learned now. And I think it's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think we can, especially for the year that is coming, and we are not sure, we are not certain at all that we are going to normally teach on campus. So, but it is possible that partially we will have some opportunity to do it. So I think that, you know, I think that this combination might be very fruitful, very fruitful. Like I said, students are learning how to control what they do, how to be more responsible, you know, in their work. And I think it's a good thing. So at least I'm going to continue some aspects of this. I'm going to continue. Yeah.
And also I would like to add that regular studio classes in the halls, it works quite fine. About piano studios, because they are overcrowded, two pianos too close to each other. Probably it's logistically we need to think how to move them, how to move them, how to sanitize after each student.
Yeah.
And it will take some time, so it's different schedule. So,
Yeah.
but there are more questions than
answers.
clear answers.
More questions than answers, yes. Certainly some physical adaptations that will come our way. And those, it may take a long time and we may never get back to what we consider to be normal. Yeah, so back to you, Abra. What do you think this is going to do to change learning in the future?
You know, I was on a task force committee meeting this morning at 8 a.m. and we were talking about plans for fall. And, you know, one of the most important comments that came out of that whole meeting was, you know, it's okay to like this. It's okay to like parts of this. I think for so long we enculturated ourselves to reject anything like this remote teaching environment, but it's okay because there are some really good things that come of it. I told some of you earlier that I had the opportunity to interact with Leon Fleischer recently about how his remote teaching is going. And yes, Mr. Fleischer is teaching remotely for us every single day at the Peabody Institute, still to this day. And, you know, he told our board that things were going very well, actually. It's not perfect. He would much prefer to be in person with the students, but this gives him an opportunity to really focus on things like hand position and on technique and on musicality in ways he might not be able to do in person. And so I think, you know, I think we're all, in those of us in the classical music world, we can serve like the best of them, right? We might as well still be in the 19th century in terms of some of our technology, or in terms of our modality of pedagogy. So I think for us, this is an opportunity to admit that some of this is really going well, and for us to learn, as my colleagues were saying, learn what is good, and then hold on to that as we move forward in this brave new world, right? I wish I had a crystal ball. I wish I knew what was going to happen in the fall. I wish Linda and I weren't putting together 4 and 5 contingency plans and worrying about how to disinfect the pianos and figuring out which direction people are going to have to move through the building. And I mean, all of that. It's such tedious work. But at the end of the day, I do think the opportunity here is just mind-blowingly incredible. And I think if we position our mindset in terms of opportunity, thinking outside the box instead of kicking the box and realizing all the things that we've potentially lost, or kind of reveling in the grief of the moment, we really truly can get to a place that's exciting for the whole community.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love thinking outside the box instead of kicking the box, and that this can be mind-blowing in a really good way, in a really positive way. Okay, Linda, we'll let you have the last word. How can this change us as musicians? How will this change the way we look at learning in the future?
I think as musicians, if we can have a sense of double fluency as we embrace this world, we will be well served. And by that I mean that we are fluent in our traditional methods of teaching and learning, but we become fluent, truly fluent, in another language. And learning and teaching virtually is essentially another language for many of us. And so just as we might have that double major in our music classes, we are all double majors. We are double majors in our traditional methods that we have so loved and we know so well. This is our intimate way of working, and we know it and love it. However, when we can become equally fluent, or perhaps even more fluent, in another language, we have just increased our ability to make music and teach music exponentially. And so I would just like to think of it as that double fluency. And so for me, I want it, it's been so intense, and getting through Friday's graduation, everything's really, really intense. But after we have this semester finished, I have all these plans for ways to become more fluent in all these things that I need to become more fluent in, because I want to have that knowledge inside that, yes, I can do this, and it's not scary anymore, because we know what we know and love. The things we don't know how to do, there's a sense of fear. I mean, that's life. So I want to become fluent in some things that I'm not currently fluent in. By God, I've got it. So after graduation, here's day 1, day 2, day 3. Here's what I need. So again, planning and how we use our time and how we embrace the new so that we can help increase the old. They work together. But I think music is inspiring. We have to make the music continue. It's up to us. And so let's do it.
Absolutely.
We'll make the music continue.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to our wonderful panelists. I've learned so much today and been so inspired by the good things that you are doing. Many thanks to Dr. Linda Monson from George Mason University, to Dr. Abra Bush from the Peabody Institute, Dr. Larissa Dedova and Dr. Mikhail Volchok from the University of Maryland. And to all of our listeners, thank you for joining us. We would love to hear from you. We will post the recording of this on our website. Continue to make the music and make the music happen. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Steinway.
Thank you.
Thanks.